The council chamber stretched before Dae Kim like an enormous cathedral made of crystal and light. He had walked this path many times over the past 3 years, but today felt different. Today would determine humanity's future among the stars. 7 species sat in judgment, their representatives perched on platforms that floated in a precise circle around the central speaking area. The Virith were there, their scaled bodies gleaming under the artificial suns that lit the chamber. The Quilmer clicked and chittered among themselves, their insect-like forms casting strange shadows. 5 other species watched with various degrees of interest as Dae approached the center platform dot behind him. 3 other humans waited in the observer section. Hannah Choi stood with perfect military posture, her uniform crisp and decorated with medals from Earth's last corporate war. Tae Park clutched a datapad containing humanity's technological contributions to the Council over the probationary period. Yuna Lee sat quietly in the back, her eyes constantly moving, watching everything. A reached the center platform and bowed respectfully. He had learned the customs of all 7 species, had spoken their languages, had eaten their foods, and learned their histories. 3 years of his life had been devoted to this moment. Ambassador Dae Kim of Earth. The Varith Council speaker's voice rumbled through the chamber. You stand before us to petition for full membership in the Galactic Council. Your probationary period has ended. We have reviewed your species' contributions. Thank you, Speaker, Dae replied in perfect Varith. Humanity is honored by your consideration. The speaker's eyes, dark and ancient, fixed on him. Indeed, your species has been quite useful during this probationary time. Your soldiers fought well in the Outer Rim conflicts. Your workers have been efficient in the mining colonies. Your scientists have improved many of our existing systems. Dae felt a small surge of pride. Humanity had worked hard to prove themselves. They had sent their best and brightest to serve the Council. Young men and women had died in conflicts they barely understood, all to show that humans could be trusted partners in the galactic community. However, the speaker continued, and something in that word made Dae's stomach tighten. We must be honest about humanity's place in our civilization. The chamber fell silent. Even the Quilmer stopped their constant clicking. After careful consideration and extensive study of your species, we have reached a decision. The speaker leaned forward. Humanity will not be granted full membership in the Galactic Council. The words hit Dae like a physical blow. Around the chamber, he could hear Hana shift her weight, a tiny movement that spoke of barely controlled anger. Tae's datapad slipped slightly in his hands. I don't understand, Dae said carefully. We have completed every task assigned to us. We have contributed to 17 major projects. We have fought in your wars and died for Council causes. What more must we do? The Quilmer Trade Master spoke up, its translated voice carrying a tone that might have been amusement. You misunderstand, human. This is not about what you have not done. This is about what you are. Another representative, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline shell, added its thoughts. Your species is young, aggressive, useful, yes, but not equal. The speaker raised a clawed hand for silence. We are prepared to offer you a different arrangement, one that recognizes your species' particular talents. Dae waited, his heart pounding in his chest. Humanity will be granted the status of protected service species. You will provide soldiers for Council security operations. Your colonies will supply raw materials to Council industries. In exchange, we will protect Earth and your settlements from external threats. We will allow you access to basic galactic technology. You will have a voice in minor Council decisions that directly affect your service assignments. Protected service species. The words seemed to echo in the vast chamber. Dae had studied galactic history during his preparation. He knew what those words meant. The Torvin had been a protected service species. They had served the Council for 600 years before their population collapsed from constant warfare. The Milnarch still held that status, their people scattered across the galaxy as laborers and technicians. Their homeworld stripped of resources. Slaves, a word the Council wouldn't use. But the reality was clear. "We studied your history extensively," the speaker continued, seeming to take Day's silence as contemplation. "Your species has spent its entire existence in conflict. War after war, nation against nation, corporation against corporation. You are warriors by nature. We are simply offering you a chance to do what you do best, in service to a greater civilization." "You expected this," Day said quietly. It wasn't a question. The trade master made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. "Of course. Did you truly believe we would accept your kind as equals? You who only discovered quantum slip travel because you stumbled upon our probe. You who still fight among yourselves over patches of dirt and drops of water. We have been using your probationary period to assess your value," another representative added. "And you do have value, just not as partners." They looked around the chamber at the 7 species who ruled this section of the galaxy. Species who had mastered space travel before humans learned to make fire. Species whose civilizations had endured for thousands of years, while humanity clawed its way up from caves and darkness. And in their eyes, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Not hatred, not fear, just a calm, absolute certainty that they were right. "I need to consult with my government," Day said, his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. "Of course," the speaker said, magnanimous in victory. "We understand this is a significant decision. We will give you 24 standard hours to discuss this with Earth. But understand this, Ambassador Day Kim, this is the only offer you will receive. Accept it, or humanity will be barred from Council space entirely. Your colonies will be forfeit. Your ships will be destroyed if they leave your home system. You will be alone in a very dangerous galaxy." Day bowed one final time, a gesture automatic after 3 years of practice. Then he turned and walked back to where the other humans waited. Hana's jaw was clenched so tight he could see the muscles jumping. Tay looked like he might be sick. Only Yuna seemed calm, but her eyes were sharp and alert. They left the chamber in silence. The massive doors closed behind them, with a sound like the sealing of a tomb. In the hallway beyond, Day finally allowed himself to speak. "Tell me you got it all recorded," he said to Yuna. "Every word," she replied quietly. "And Ambassador, there's something else you need to see. I've been monitoring Council communications during the session." They walked quickly to the human delegation quarters, a small section of the orbital station that had been their home for 3 years. Once inside, Yuna activated a holographic display. Strings of intercepted data floated in the air. "They've been planning this from the beginning," Yuna said, her fingers moving through the data. "Here, messages between the speaker and the trade master from 2 weeks after we arrived. They describe humanity as promising servant material. Here, an analysis of our military tactics with recommendations for deployment as shock troops. And this," she pulled up a final document. "This is a projection of resource extraction from human colonies over the next century." They read the numbers. The projected casualties. The estimated lifespan of human colonies under Council exploitation. The calculated breaking point of human resistance. Hana stood beside him, reading over his shoulder. "They never intended to treat us as equals." "No," they agreed. They saw opportunity. Free soldiers. Cheap labor. New resources to exploit. Tay spoke up from where he sat, his face pale. "What do we do?" Day looked at his team. 3 people who had given years of their lives to alive. Behind them, through the window, he could see Earth in the distance, a blue marble hanging in the darkness. "We call home," Day said. "And then we show them what happens when you mistake human courtesy for human weakness." The chamber had been silent when they left, but Day knew that silence would not last. The universe was about to learn something the Council had forgotten in their thousands of years of dominance. Humanity had walked among the stars seeking friends, but they had come from a world that taught hard lessons about survival. And the hardest lesson of all was this: some offers were worse than no offer at all. Exactly 24 hours later, Day Kim walked back into the council chamber. This time, something was different. The human delegation had grown. Where before only 3 people had accompanied him, now there were 20. Representatives from every human colony in council space stood in neat rows behind him. Military officers, scientists, colony administrators, all wearing their formal uniforms. The council noticed. The speaker's eyes narrowed slightly as he watched the humans file in. Day walked to the center platform again. His steps were measured and calm. Behind him, Hana Choi carried a simple metal case. Tae Park held his data pad. Yuna Lee stood at attention, her face revealing nothing. "Ambassador Day Kim," the speaker began, "have you brought us Earth's decision?" "I have," Day replied. His voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. Across council space, on 12 human colonies, millions of people watched through quantum-linked feeds. On Earth, in homes and public squares, 3 billion humans waited to hear what their representative would say. "Humanity has considered your generous offer with great care," Day continued. The slight emphasis on generous was barely noticeable. "We have consulted with our governments, our military leaders, our colonists, and our people. We have debated and discussed, and we have reached a unanimous decision." The speaker leaned back in his floating chair, confident. Around him, the other council members watched with varying degrees of interest. This was a formality, after all. What choice did the humans really have? "Humanity declines your offer," they said simply. For a moment, the chamber was absolutely silent. Then the Quilmer trademaster made a sound like grinding metal. The translator rendered it as laughter. "You decline?" The trademaster said, "Perhaps you did not understand the terms. We are offering you protection, access to our technology, a place in galactic civilization." "We understood perfectly," they replied. "You are offering us chains dressed up as gifts. You want soldiers to die in your wars, workers to strip our colonies bare. You want us to bow and serve while you profit from our blood and sweat. We decline." The speaker's expression darkened. "Then you choose isolation. Humanity will be barred from council space. Your colonies will be seized as recompense for the resources we invested in your probationary period. Your ships will be destroyed if they leave your system. Do you understand what you are choosing?" "We do," Day said. He gestured to Hana, who stepped forward and opened the metal case. Inside were dozens of data chips, each one glowing softly with stored information. "Before we leave council space, we are required by law to return all council property in our possession. These chips contain all the council technology you provided us during the probationary period." Tae Park spoke up, his voice stronger than it had been the day before. "However, we will be retaining all improvements, modifications, and innovations created by human scientists. According to Article 47 of the Probationary Species Treaty, all original research conducted by a probationary species remains their intellectual property." The speaker made a dismissive gesture. "Retain whatever minor adjustments you made. You will need every advantage in your isolation." "Minor adjustments," Day repeated. He looked back at Tae, who activated his datapad. A holographic display bloomed in the center of the chamber, visible to all. "Your quantum slip drives were inefficient," Tae explained. "They required 30% more energy than necessary, and could only travel 60% of the distances they should have been capable of. We fixed that. Every council ship that has been serviced by human engineers in the past 3 years now operates with human-improved drives. Another human stepped forward. Jin Huang, administrator of the new Seoul colony. Your environmental systems in the mining colonies were failing every 6 months. We redesigned them. They now run for years without maintenance. 40% of all council mining operations use human systems. A woman in a military uniform spoke next. Your targeting systems had a 2-second delay that resulted in a 30% miss rate in combat. We corrected the algorithm. Every council ship with a human crew member has the updated system. One by one, human representatives stepped forward. Each one described a problem they had found in council technology. Each one explained how they had fixed it. The list went on and on. Life support systems, communication networks, power distribution, waste recycling, defensive shields. In 3 years, humans had touched nearly every system in council space, and they had improved all of them. The chamber grew very quiet as the presentations continued. The trade master was no longer making sounds of amusement. The speaker's claws gripped his chair arms tightly. "That is impossible," one of the other council members finally said. "Our technology has been refined over thousands of years. Refined by species who never had to do more with less," Hana Choi responded. "Humanity comes from a world where resources were scarce and survival meant innovation. We look at your technology and see waste, inefficiency, systems that work well enough that you never bothered to make them work better." Day raised his hand and the presentation stopped. "We are also taking our military intelligence with us. Every tactical analysis, every strategic assessment, every piece of data we gathered while fighting your wars." Yuna Lee stepped forward. "We know the locations of all council military installations, all supply routes, all defensive weaknesses. We will not share this information with anyone, but we will retain it." The speaker stood up from his floating chair, his massive form towering even in the holographic display. "You dare threaten the council?" "No threat," Day said calmly. "Simply informing you of what is ours by law. We are following every rule, every regulation, every article of the treaties we signed. We are leaving council space peacefully. All human personnel will be withdrawn within 30 days. All human-occupied facilities will be returned to council control. You cannot survive alone," the speaker said. "You need our protection. There are hostile forces in the galaxy that would destroy Earth in days." "Perhaps," Day acknowledged. "Or perhaps we will find that we are more capable than you believed. Either way, it will be our choice, our risk, our future." The trade master's translator crackled with static before forming words. "If you leave, you will regret it. You will come crawling back, begging for the deal we offered." Day looked up at the alien merchant, meeting its compound eyes without flinching. "We came to you in peace. We offered friendship and partnership. We asked only to be treated as equals. You offered us chains and called it kindness. Humanity does not kneel. We do not bow. We stand or we fall, but we do it on our own terms." He turned to face all 7 council members. "In 30 days, every human will leave council space. We will take our ships, our people, and our innovations with us. You will never see us again unless you come to us as equals." "This is foolishness," the speaker roared. "I am ordering all human vessels seized immediately. You will not be permitted to leave." Day smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "You can try." He pulled a small communicator from his pocket and spoke a single word in Korean. "Now." Across council space, in orbit around 100 different worlds, in deep space stations and mining colonies and military outposts, Every human vessel activated simultaneously. Engines that had been carefully prepared in secret roared to life. Jump drives charged with stolen power from Council systems. The Council's traffic control systems went insane with alerts. Ships were moving everywhere at once, but not randomly. Every single human vessel, from tiny shuttles to massive cargo haulers, jumped to quantum slip space in perfect synchronization. In the Council chamber, alarms began to sound. Representatives shouted in confusion. The speaker was roaring orders, but it was too late. On the holographic display, Tay showed the exodus. Thousands of human ships, vanishing in pulses of light. Every single one gone in less than 60 seconds. "What have you done?" the speaker demanded. "We have left," Tay said simply. "'Cause we said we would." He looked at the human delegation. "It is time for us to go home." They turned as one and walked toward the exit. The Council members were screaming now, threatening, ordering their arrest. But the station's security forces were in chaos. No one had ever seen a coordinated evacuation on this scale. They and his delegation reached their ship. It was the last human vessel in Council space. As they boarded, Hannah looked back at the station. "Do you think they understand yet?" she asked. "They will," they replied. "Give it time." The ship powered up. Through the view screen, they could see Earth in the distance, that blue marble that held everything they loved. Around them, space was empty of human presence for the first time in 3 years. Day sat in the captain's chair and gave the order. "Take us home." The ship jumped, and the last human presence in Council space vanished. Behind them, in the Council chamber, the Trade Master was staring at a screen with growing horror. Economic projections scrolled past, each one worse than the last. Humans had handled 34% of all logistics in Council space. They had maintained critical systems on 70% of all stations. They had staffed 40% of all mining operations, and now they were gone. The speaker sank back into his chair, finally understanding what he had done. They had not rejected primitives. They had rejected the one species in the galaxy that could have made them stronger. And now, humanity was free to become whatever they chose to be. 6 months had passed since the humans vanished from Council space. The speaker sat in his private chambers, reviewing reports that grew worse with each passing day. He had expected the humans to return within weeks, desperate and broken, willing to accept any terms. Instead, there had been nothing but silence. Complete, absolute silence. The Trade Master's projection flickered to life in front of him. The insectoid being looked agitated, its mandibles clicking in distress. "The shipping routes are collapsing," the Trade Master said without preamble. "Without human logistics coordinators, our delivery times have increased by 40%. 3 major supply chains have completely failed. The mining colonies are reporting production drops of 30 to 50%. Hire more workers," the speaker said tiredly. He had heard variations of this complaint every day for months. From where? The Torvin refused to work the mines anymore. "They say the conditions are unbearable without the human-designed environmental systems. The Milnarch are demanding triple wages. And the systems are failing, Speaker. The humans maintain things we did not even know needed maintenance." The speaker closed his eyes. It was true. Across Council space, infrastructure was breaking down. Life support systems required constant repair. Power plants were operating at reduced capacity. Even simple things like waste, recycling were becoming problems. The humans had made everything work so smoothly that no one had noticed all the small fixes they implemented. Every single day, another projection activated. This one showed a VREF military commander, her scales showing signs of stress molting. "Speaker, we have a situation on Mining Colony 7. The entire human workforce has disappeared. All of them. Every single person. Gone overnight." "Impossible," the speaker said. We had ships monitoring the system. No vessels left. I know, sir. But they are gone. All 3,000 workers. And they took everything with them. The mining equipment. The processing plants. The habitation modules. Everything. There is nothing left but empty foundations. The speaker stood up, his claws scraping against the stone floor. How? How did they remove that much equipment without anyone noticing? We do not know, sir. But this is the third colony where this has happened. The humans are evacuating their people and stripping everything they built. By the time we notice, there is nothing left. A fourth projection joined the others. A Quilmer scientist, its voice tight with what might have been fear. Speaker, you need to see this. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected something unusual. A star chart appeared in the air. The scientist highlighted a section of previously empty space, far beyond Council territory. What am I looking at? The speaker asked. Energy signatures, sir. Massive ones. Our sensors detected 17 new power sources appearing over the past month. Each one generates more energy than a small star. Power sources? What kind of power sources? We do not know. We sent probe ships to investigate. They did not return. We sent a scouting vessel. It also did not return. Whatever these installations are, they are protected by defensive systems that our ships cannot penetrate. The trade master's image leaned closer. You think these are human installations? The locations correspond to the last known jump coordinates of several human colony ships, the scientist said. And the energy signatures match the modified quantum reactors that human engineers designed during their probationary period. The speaker felt something cold settle in his stomach. 17 power installations. In 6 months. Yes, sir. And there may be more. These are just the ones large enough for our sensors to detect at this range. What are they building out there? The speaker wondered aloud. No one had an answer. Over the following weeks, the situation continued to deteriorate. Trade routes that had functioned smoothly for centuries were now experiencing delays and failures. Arguments broke out between council species over resource distribution. The Quilmer accused the Verith of hoarding supplies. The energy beings claimed they were being shortchanged on power allocations. For thousands of years, the council had maintained peace among its member species through careful management and fair distribution. But that management had relied on human administrators, human logistics experts, human mediators who somehow managed to keep everyone satisfied. Now, without them, old tensions were resurfaced. The speaker stood before the full council, addressing the growing crisis. We must find the humans, he said. We must locate their colonies and open negotiations. Negotiations? The trade master's voice was sharp. They rejected our generous offer. They insulted this council with their defiance. And now we are paying the price for that defiance, another council member said. Our economy is struggling. Our infrastructure is failing. We need their expertise. We need nothing from primitives, the speaker said, but even he could hear the doubt in his own voice. A Verith intelligence officer stepped forward. Speaker, we have tried to locate human space. We have sent dozens of scout ships into the sectors where we believe their colonies to be. None have returned. It is as if the humans have created some kind of barrier that our ships cannot penetrate. Impossible. They do not have that technology. They did not have it 6 months ago, the officer corrected. We do not know what they have now. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent alert. A council merchant fleet had stumbled upon something in deep space. The captain was requesting immediate support. The speaker opened the communication channel. This is the speaker. Report. The captain's voice crackled through, and there was genuine fear in it. Sir, we were investigating one of the anomalous power signatures. We found. I do not even know how to describe it. Try, the speaker ordered. It is a structure, sir. Massive beyond anything I have ever seen. Hundreds of kilometers across. It appears to be some kind of construction facility. We can see ships being built inside, dozens of them. And the defensive systems... Sir, they destroyed our scout ships before they could get within 1,000 kilometers. Did you identify the builders? There was a pause. The structure is broadcasting a repeating message in multiple languages. It says, "This is sovereign human space. Unauthorized vessels will be destroyed. You have been warned. Sir, these are not the ships we saw during their probationary period. These are something new. Something advanced." The speaker terminated the connection and stood in silence. Around him, the council members were talking in hushed, worried tones. The Quilner scientist appeared again, this time in person. He scuttled to the center of the chamber, projecting new data. "I have been analyzing the energy signatures more carefully," the scientist said. "These installations are not just power plants. They are construction facilities, forges. The humans are building something out there. Building it fast, and building it on a massive scale. What could they possibly be building?" The speaker demanded. "Based on the energy consumption patterns and the materials we detect being moved into the sites, I believe they are building warships." The chamber erupted in noise. Species shouting over each other. Accusations. Denials. Fear. The speaker raised his claws for silence. "How many ships?" "Impossible to determine accurately from this distance. But based on the construction rate, we are observing hundreds, maybe thousands. In 6 months? That is impossible. The humans seem to specialize in doing the impossible," the scientist said quietly. That night, the speaker sat alone in his chambers. He thought about the humans who had stood before the council 6 months ago. Dae Kim with his calm dignity. Hana Choi with her military bearing. Tae Park with his data, showing all the ways humans had improved council technology. He had dismissed them as primitives. Useful tools, nothing more. He had offered them servitude and expected gratitude. Instead, they had walked away. And in 6 months, they had built an empire in the darkness beyond council space. A message arrived on his private terminal. It was simple. Just a few words. But the sender was listed as Dae Kim, Earth Diplomatic Service. The message read, "You chose this. Now live with your choice." The speaker stared at those words for a long time. Then he deleted the message and tried to sleep. But sleep did not come easily anymore, because every time he closed his eyes, he saw those 17 stars burning in the darkness. Human stars. Human power. And he wondered what else the humans were building out there in the dark. Across council space, others were wondering the same thing. The free species, those who had never joined the council, were receiving different messages from humanity. Messages offering trade, technology exchanges, mutual defense pacts, friendship. The humans were not asking these species to serve. They were asking them to join as equals. And one by one, those species were saying yes. The universe was changing. The old order that had stood for thousands of years was cracking. And at the center of that change, invisible behind their barrier, humanity was building something new. The speaker finally sent a message to the council's military commanders. Find them. Find where the humans are hiding. Find out what they are building. Use whatever means necessary. He did not know it yet, but that order would lead to the greatest military disaster in council history, because the humans were not hiding. They were preparing, and they had learned from every mistake the council had made during their thousands of years of rule. They had studied council military tactics during the wars they fought as probationary members. They had analyzed council weaknesses. They had planned for this exact scenario. The humans had been preparing to walk away from the moment they arrived in council space. They just had not known they would need to until the Council showed its true face. Now, in the darkness beyond Council sensors, in installations that burned like stars, humanity was building its future. A future where they would never kneel again. The silence from human space continued. But it was not the silence of defeat. It was the silence before the storm. 1 year after humanity walked away from the Council, the galaxy looked very different. In the free territories, those spaces unclaimed by the Council, something new was growing. Ships bearing the symbols of a dozen species moved along trade routes that had not existed months before. And at the heart of this new network, human vessels moved with quiet efficiency. Hyan CO stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic ship Unity, watching a small fleet of alien vessels dock with the trade station. They were pollen ships, a species that had avoided contact with the Council for generations. Today, they were signing a treaty with humanity. They looked nervous, said the Palin ambassador standing beside her. His name was approximately translated as Bright Feather, and his species resembled birds with 4 arms and iridescent scales. They should be excited, Hyan replied. This treaty will open up new markets for both our peoples. They are excited, but also nervous. The Council does not approve of species trading with humanity. They have made threats. Hyan smiled. It was a gentle expression, but her eyes were hard. The Council makes many threats these days. Most of them are empty. She was right. In the year since the Exodus, the Council's power had weakened considerably. Species that once jumped at their commands now hesitated. Some openly defied Council orders. And the reason was simple. Humanity had proven that the Council could be resisted. More than that, humanity had shown these species what real partnership looked like. When humans offered a trade deal, both sides benefited. When humans shared technology, they did not demand servitude in return. When humans made promises, they kept them. The Federation of Free Worlds had formed 6 months ago. 8 species had signed the founding charter. Humanity was one of the founding members, but they had insisted they would not lead. Instead, leadership rotated among the member species. True equality, not just words. Now the Federation controlled 40% of the former unclaimed territories. New colonies were being established. Trade was booming. And every week, more species approached the Federation asking about membership. The Council had noticed. They had complained, threatened, and demanded the Federation dissolve. The Federation had politely ignored them. There is something else, Bright Feather said, his voice dropping. The Council is sending a war fleet to investigate your installations. The ones you call the Forges. When? Hyan asked calmly. They departed 3 days ago. They should arrive at the closest forge within the week. Thank you for the warning. Though I should mention that we already knew. Bright Feather looked surprised. Your intelligence network is that good? We learned from the best. The Council taught us everything we needed to know about surveillance during our probationary period. We simply improved on their methods. She pulled out a communicator and spoke briefly in Korean. Somewhere far away, preparations were being made. 7 days later, the Council war fleet arrived at the coordinates of the nearest human forge. Admiral Kresh, a veteran Verith commander, stood on the bridge of his flagship and stared at what his sensors were showing. The forge was enormous. It hung in space like a small moon, its surface covered in construction bays and manufacturing facilities. Energy crackled around it as massive reactors powered the industrial complex. Kresh could see ships being built, vessels that looked nothing like the retrofitted Council ships humans had used during their probationary period. These ships were sleek and dangerous looking. Their hulls showed design principles that Kresh had never seen before. Weapons ports were visible, but the weapons themselves were unfamiliar. Send a squadron of fighters to conduct a close inspection, Kresh ordered. Sir, the installation is broadcasting a warning, his communications officer said. "It says this is sovereign human space, and unauthorized vessels will be destroyed. Ignore it. Advance." 12 Council fighters broke formation and accelerated toward the forge. They close to within 5,000 kilometers. Then 4,000. 3,000. At 2,000 kilometers, the forge's defensive systems activated. Kresh had been in hundreds of battles. He had seen plasma cannons, missile batteries, and particle beam weapons. What he saw now was something different. Points of light appeared around the forge, mathematical precision in their placement. The light intensified for just a fraction of a second. Then 12 Council fighters simply ceased to exist. No explosions. No debris. They were just gone. What was that? Kresh demanded. What kind of weapon was that? His science officer was frantically analyzing the data. "I do not know, sir. The energy signature does not match anything in our database. Whatever it was incredibly efficient. No wasted energy. No heat bloom. Just complete disintegration of the target." Kresh stared at the forge. Somewhere inside that massive structure, humans were watching his fleet. Waiting. "Pull back," he ordered. "Reform at maximum sensor range." As his fleet retreated, a single ship detached from the forge and moved to intercept. It was smaller than his flagship, maybe a quarter of the size. But as it approached, Kresh felt something he had not felt in decades of military service. Fear. The ship moved with a grace that should have been impossible for something that large. It did not follow normal acceleration curves. It seemed to slide through space, as if physics was merely a suggestion. "That ship is operating at speeds that should require 3 times the power we are detecting," his science officer said. "Their engine efficiency is beyond anything we have achieved." The human ship stopped exactly 10,000 kilometers from the Council fleet. A communication request came through. Kresh accepted it. The hologram that formed showed a human woman in a dark uniform. Her rank insignia showed she was a captain. Her name, according to the translation, was Rena O. "Council fleet," she said, her voice calm and professional. "You have entered sovereign human space. You ignored our warnings. You attacked our installations. You have 4 minutes to leave this sector. If you remain after that time, you will be destroyed." Kresh drew himself up to his full height, which was impressive for a Verith. "I am Admiral Kresh of the Council Defense Forces. I command 300 ships. You are 1 vessel. Your threats are meaningless." Captain Rena smiled. It was not a kind expression. "Admiral, I am going to give you some information as a courtesy. The ship you are looking at is the CNS Vengeance. It is the first of our new Dreadnought-class vessels. It is operating at 40% power capacity. It is crewed by 20 people, and it can destroy your entire fleet in approximately 4 minutes. "Impossible," Kresh said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You have 3 minutes and 30 seconds to begin your jump to quantum slip space," Rena continued. "Use them wisely." Kresh cut the communication. He looked at his officers. "Battle formation. Prepare all weapons. If that ship attacks, we will show these humans what a real military looks like." "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "I recommend we withdraw. You recommend cowardice?" "No, sir. I recommend survival. Look at the data. That ship should not be possible. The humans have technology we do not understand. We should report this and request reinforcements." Kresh wanted to argue. His pride demanded he fight. But his experience, earned over 50 years of military service, was screaming at him that something was very wrong. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted. "The human ship is charging weapons." On the tactical display, energy signatures were building around the Vengeance. Weapons ports were opening. and the math that Kresh's computers were showing him made no sense. The power levels were impossible. "Jump to quantum slip space," Kresh ordered. "Now, sir, the rest of the fleet is not ready. It will take 90 seconds to coordinate. Then coordinate faster. Get us out of here." The Council fleet began its emergency jump procedures. It was chaotic, undisciplined, and exactly the kind of retreat that Kresh had spent his career training his forces to avoid. But every instinct he had was telling him that staying meant death. 70 seconds later, the first ships began jumping. Kresh's flagship was among the last to go. As they entered quantum slip space, his sensors recorded the Vengeance doing nothing. It simply sat there, watching them run. The entire fleet returned to Council space in complete disarray. Ships appeared at different times, their crews shaken and confused. Kresh immediately sent a detailed report to the speaker. The report described the human forge, the impossible weapons, the ship that defied known physics, and most importantly, it described how a single human vessel had sent an entire Council war fleet running without firing a shot. When the speaker received the report, he did something he had not done in 100 years. He called an emergency session of the full Council. "The humans have surpassed us," he said bluntly. "In 1 year, they have developed technology that we do not understand. They have built installations we cannot penetrate. They have ships that our finest military commander calls unstoppable." "1 ship?" the trade master protested. Surely it was a bluff. Admiral Kresh has served the Council for 50 years. He has never retreated from battle. Not once. If he says the ship was a threat, then it was a threat. The Council chamber was silent. Finally, one of the energy beings spoke. "What do we do?" "We have 2 choices," the speaker said. "We can continue our current path and eventually face war with a species that has proven more innovative and adaptable than we ever imagined. Or we can attempt to negotiate." "Negotiate?" The trade master's translator crackled with disbelief. "They rejected our generous offer. They humiliated us." "No," said Narration, appearing as a hologram in the center of the chamber. The Council members jumped in surprise. Humans were not supposed to be able to access their private sessions. Nari smiled at their shock. "Your security is also not as good as you think it is. But I did not come here to gloat. I came with a message from the Federation of Free Worlds. We know you sent a war fleet to our space. We know it retreated. We want you to know that we could have destroyed it. We chose mercy. What do you want?" The speaker asked. "Nothing from you," Nari replied. "We want nothing from the Council. We have our own path now. But we will not tolerate your interference in free space. We will not allow you to threaten species who choose to trade with us. And we will defend our sovereignty with whatever force is necessary." "That is not a threat. It is a fact." The hologram disappeared, leaving the Council in stunned silence. The speaker sank into his chair. In 1 year, everything had changed. The species they had dismissed as primitives had built an empire. The tools they had planned to exploit had become the greatest power in the region. And the worst part was knowing that it was entirely the Council's fault. They had created their own rival through arrogance and contempt. The universe had indeed shaken in fear when the humans walked away. But not for the reasons the Council had expected. 2 years after humanity walked away from the Council, the galaxy stood at a crossroads. The Federation of Free Worlds had grown to include 23 species. Trade flourished. New colonies were established on worlds that had been deemed too difficult or too expensive to settle using Council technology. Human innovation had made the impossible routine, but not everyone was happy with the new order. The Council still controlled vast territories and held significant power. And among the Council species, pride warred with practicality. in a secret meeting room on the Quilmer home world. 3 species gathered without the speaker's knowledge. The Quilmer Trademaster was there, along with representatives from 2 other council races. They spoke in hushed tones about doing the unthinkable. "My people are suffering," the Quilmer representative said. "Our economy is collapsing without human logistics support. The speaker refuses to admit his mistake, but we cannot continue like this." "My government agrees," said one of the others. "We should approach the humans independently, negotiate our own treaties." "That would mean leaving the council," the 3rd representative said. "Breaking an alliance that has stood for 4,000 years. An alliance that is choking us to death," the Trademaster replied. "The humans offer real partnership. The council offers only decay and pride." Before they could decide, alarms began sounding across the planet. Not war alarms. Something worse. Deep space monitoring stations were detecting something massive moving through the void between galaxies. Within ours, every species in the galaxy knew something was coming. The object was vast, kilometers long, and it was heading directly toward council space. More terrifying, it was accelerating. And it was broadcasting. EUN Park stood in the Human Analysis Center, watching the data stream in. She was the director of the Ascension Project, humanity's most advanced research initiative. And what she was seeing made her blood run cold. "It is a war machine," she said to the assembled scientists. "Autonomous, ancient, probably left over from some long-dead civilization's conflict." "How old?" someone asked. "Based on the decay signatures in its hull material? At least 50,000 years. It has been drifting in deep space, dormant. Something has woken it up. What will it do?" Yoon pulled up a projection. "Based on its current trajectory and the analysis of its weapon systems, it will destroy every inhabited world in its path, starting with council space. How long do we have?" 6 weeks until it reaches the first council worlds." The information spread quickly. The council received the same data from their own sensors. Panic followed. They sent every ship they had to intercept the machine. The battle was brief and catastrophic. Council weapons barely scratched the ancient hull. In response, the war machine destroyed 40% of the council's fleet in less than an hour. The survivors limped home, their reports full of horror. The machine was unstoppable. It repaired itself faster than they could damage it. Its weapons used principles of physics that council science did not understand. And it was still coming. The speaker sat in his chambers, staring at casualty reports. Thousands dead. Dozens of ships destroyed. And the machine had not even slowed down. A communication request came through. The sender was listed as Dae Kim. The speaker stared at the name for a long moment before accepting. Dae's hologram appeared. He looked older than he had 2 years ago. His hair showed touches of gray, but his eyes were still sharp. "Speaker," Dae said simply. "Ambassador, have you come to witness our destruction?" "No, I have come to offer help." The speaker laughed, a bitter sound. "Help? After everything that has happened between our peoples?" "A threat approaches that will destroy you all," Dae said. "We can stop it. The question is, do you want our help? What do you want in return?" "Nothing. We will help you because it is the right thing to do. Because leaving you to die would make us as cruel as you tried to make us." The speaker was silent for a long time. Finally, he asked, "Can you really stop it?" "Yes, we have been tracking it since it entered the galaxy. We know what it is and how it operates. We can destroy it." "Why are you doing this?" "We treated you terribly. We tried to enslave your species." Dae's expression softened slightly. "Because we are human. We remember the insult. We remember the pain. But we do not let it make us into monsters. We help because that is who we choose to be." The speaker closed his eyes. His pride wanted to refuse. But his responsibility to his people demanded that he accept. "What do you need from us?" he asked. "Nothing. Stay out of our way. That is all." The communication ended. The speaker sat in silence, understanding that he had just admitted defeat in a way no military loss could have forced Dot in human space. Soong Bei stood on the bridge of the Shadow Fleet's flagship. His ships had been preparing for this moment since Yoon's team first detected the war machine. Now it was time to act. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer said. "Then let us show the galaxy what humanity has built in 2 years," Soong replied. "Engage." The Shadow Fleet dropped out of quantum slip space directly in the war machine's path. 50 ships, each one built with technology that represented humanity's greatest achievements. No council designs, no borrowed systems, pure human innovation. The war machine detected them and opened fire. Weapons that had destroyed council ships easily met defensive shields that bent and scattered the energy harmlessly. The machine adjusted, trying different weapon frequencies. The human shields adapted faster. "Target the primary power core," Soong ordered. Concentrated fire. The human ships fired as one. Not plasma cannons or missile batteries. Something new. Weapons that manipulated gravity itself, creating compression fields that crushed matter at the molecular level. The war machine's hull, which had withstood everything the Council threw at it, began to buckle. Alarms would have been sounding inside the ancient construct if anyone had been there to hear them. Automated repair systems activated, but they could not keep up with the damage. "Second wave," Soong commanded. "Target the weapon systems." More gravity weapons fired. The war machine's offensive capabilities went dark. It tried to retreat, its simple programming recognizing a superior threat. But it was too late. "Yoon?" Soong said into his communicator. "It is time." On a ship at the rear of the formation, Yoon Park activated a device her team had spent 2 years developing. It was based on principles they had discovered by studying the war machine's own propulsion system. A quantum disruption field that could tear apart atomic bonds. The device fired. A beam of nothing, of pure dissolution, struck the war machine. Where it touched, matter simply stopped existing. The beam cut through the ancient hull like it was paper. The war machine tried one final attack, one last desperate blast of energy. It dissipated against human shields. Then the quantum disruption. Beam reached the machine's power core. The explosion was visible for light years. When it faded, there was nothing left but expanding gas and debris. The Council watched from their safe distance, their sensors recording everything. They saw human ships that moved with impossible grace. Weapons that operated on principles their science could not explain. Shields that made their own defensive technology look like children's toys. And they saw 50 ships destroy a threat that their entire fleet could not scratch. When the battle was over, Soong sent a simple message to the Council. "The threat has been eliminated. You are safe. No demands. No gloating. Just a statement of fact." The speaker received the message and knew that everything had changed forever. The Council could no longer pretend that humans were primitives. They could no longer dismiss humanity as a minor inconvenience. 3 days later, 4 Council species formally announced they were leaving the Council to join the Federation of Free Worlds. They had seen humanity save worlds that had treated them with contempt. They had seen what real strength looked like. Combined with compassion, the remaining Council species faced a choice: continue in isolation and slow decline, or accept that the galaxy had changed. The Verith chose isolation. The speaker resigned, returning to his home world to live out his remaining years in bitter solitude. His people remained in Council space, clinging to their pride and their past glory. But the others chose differently. One by one, they approached the Federation, not demanding membership, not expecting welcome, simply asking if there might be room for species who had learned hard lessons about humility. Dae Kim, now the Federation's rotating chairman, met with each delegation personally. He listened to their apologies. He acknowledged their admissions of fault. And he welcomed them. The Federation is built on one principle, he told each delegation. Equality. True equality. Not words, but actions. If you can accept that, then you are welcome here. Most accepted. Some struggled with the concept at first. But slowly, the galaxy was learning a new way to exist. 5 years after humanity walked away from the Council, Dae stood in the new Federation chamber. It was circular, with seats arranged in a perfect ring. No species sat higher than another. No voice carried more weight than any other. He looked around at the representatives from 48 species. Some had been council members. Some had been free species. Some had been protected service species, finally liberated from their bonds. All were equals now. Hana Choi sat beside him, retired from military service, but still involved in Federation defense planning. Tae Park was there as the head of the Technology Sharing Initiative. Yuna Lee ran the Federation's intelligence service, though most people did not know that. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the Council had accepted us as equals from the start? Hannah asked quietly. Dae considered the question. Sometimes. But I think this is better. We were forced to stand on our own. We built something new instead of just joining something old. And in doing so, we showed the galaxy that there was a better way. Do you think they have learned? Tae asked. Some have. Others are still learning. The Virith may never learn. But that is their choice. The Federation session began. Today they were voting on applications from 3 new species. The discussion was lively, with different perspectives being shared. In the end, all 3 were accepted, with conditions designed to help them integrate into Federation culture. After the session, Dae walked to the observation deck. Through the transparent hull, he could see Earth in the distance. His home. The world that had sent him to the stars to seek friendship. He had found something better than friendship with the Council. He had found proof that humanity could create something new. Something better. Something built on respect and equality rather than dominance and exploitation. The universe had shaken in fear when humans walked away from the Council. But it had learned to sleep soundly knowing that humanity stood watch. Not as conquerors. Not as overlords. But as partners and protectors. Mira Song joined him at the observation deck, her fleet having just returned from patrol along the Federation's borders. Everything quiet? Dae asked. Quiet and getting quieter. 3 more species have requested Federation membership this week. The old ways are dying, Dae. The galaxy is changing. Changing for the better, I hope. Definitely for the better. Because we showed them that strength does not have to mean cruelty. Power does not have to mean domination. And that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from those who will not treat you with respect. Dae smiled. We came seeking equals and found masters. We rejected servitude and built an empire. And now that empire shows the galaxy what real civilization looks like. What do you think the future holds? Mira asked. Dae looked out at the stars, at the vast expanse of space that still held so many mysteries. I think humanity has a lot more exploring to do. A lot more species to meet. A lot more challenges to overcome. But whatever comes, we will face it as we always have. Standing tall, working together, and refusing to kneel. Refusing to kneel, Myra repeated. I like that. It should be humanity's motto, Dae said with a smile. Somewhere in the distance, on a lonely planet in what used to be council space, the former speaker watched the stars and wondered what might have been if he had chosen differently 2 years ago. If he had offered partnership instead of chains. If he had seen humans as equals instead of tools. But it was too late for regrets. The galaxy had moved on. And humanity, the species he had dismissed as primitives, had taught the universe a lesson that would echo for generations. Some offers are worse than no offer at all. Some prices are too high to pay. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and build something better on your own terms. The universe had indeed shaken when humans walked away from the council, but not in fear of what humanity would become. In fear of what they themselves had lost by letting humanity go.